Evisceradio.
What's shaking, everybody? My name is Thomas, and thank you so much for tuning in to another awesome, excellent episode of Evisceradio, where I sit down with bands that I play in a live show, and we talk about what's good in life and what's good in music and everything in between. It is guaranteed good, wholesome times, genuine content found inside from me to you with love. Doing something a little bit different tonight. For this episode, I'm sitting down with Sean from a podcast called The Creative Imbalance, set right here in Toronto, just down the road, actually. I'm looking forward to picking his brain about why he's doing his podcast, how he gets the guests that he gets, and like the wide breadth of like individuals that he speaks on. Like he's interviewed Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse, David Suzuki, who needs no introduction. He's just got his hands in all kinds of creative outlets. This is definitely someone that I've been wanting to keep an eye on for a while, and am doing so by interviewing him today. I can't wait. This is really, really cool. I'm looking forward to picking his brain and finding out why he does what he does, like how he gets the passion out of it, how fulfilling it is, how he keeps his life balanced with doing something as demanding as his product is. It's just super duper cool. I'm really, really happy that I finally get to talk to him. I hope you guys are looking forward to watching this one. This is going to be great. It's going to be a wicked conversation. I'm so down for it. Can't wait. Let's get right into it, man. So without further ado, Sean from the Creative Imbalance. Yeah.
What's shaking, brother? How's it going?
Really good. Nice to reconnect with you, man. I'm digging your background. I'm actually jealous. I know I can green screen one of those in, but that's fucking awesome.
Thanks, man. It's my little slice of home, living in the studio apartment, podcast lifestyle sort of thing. I got to have the plants going and little thing, hanging thing in the background. Thank you for digging it.
Yeah, doing it right, man. Amazing.
Well, there's something to be said for presentability. I like to put a little bit of spit shine on my product here. Much like you too, man. Your stuff looks really, really good. I'm a big fan of how shiny your shit is.
Thank you, man. Even like it's funny because you know how this stuff is. It's kind of endless where you can evolve and grow things. And I kind of look at my stuff now and I feel like, oh, I can make it more polished. I don't know. I get like too much in my own head about it in a way,
Yeah.
but I think it's like kind of like a positive thing. It keeps it interesting and stuff. Do you feel the same way with like your work and everything, that you can always like chip away and adjust things?
Always.
Yeah.
There's always somewhere to improve. Well, the way that I look at it is if you look for something, you will find something. Just as much as it is like if you look for something wrong, you're gonna find it. So I try and get to a point where like, if it's good, then it doesn't need any change. But I still find myself being like, I might my plants might have like a bad couple of months, and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna have like half dead plants up there or something like that, or you're like, switching softwares, which is what I had to do today. It's a constant battle, but you just want to have the best looking, best feeling, best vibing product that you can put out there. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. But even like I think with like doing like a heavy metal podcast, some dead plants aren't that bad. They're kind of like on brand. That's very black metal, People might mistake them for band logos in the background.
Yeah, totally. Like the dead decay of the plant world.
Yeah, I love it.
What kind of green screen stuff you got going on there? I always see you having the background, but I never see, or maybe I haven't seen enough videos or whatever, but like, do you utilize the green screen?
Yeah, so I don't utilize it really for my podcast, but I've been experimenting with just playing games on Twitch and stuff. So that's when I initially like got the green screen and I kind of get the background out and I'm kind of like almost in the side corner playing the game. But I also utilize this too as well. So when I'm doing a podcast, people don't see my messy apartment in the background.
Yeah.
I'm inspired to make like a set like yourself in a way, but I just haven't put in the work yet. So
well, that's
right.
That's the one thing that you got to watch out for, is that like it might look cool, but there's a lot that goes into it, and like there's so many hours in a day. You know what I'm saying? I like today, like I've been going since 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not done after we have our chat. Like I got hours to go yet. So I'm trying to find ways to like streamline my my camera setup and my lighting setup, so I don't have to like dump an hour into running everything through. I'd love to be in a situation where I can have everything just set up, ready to go, and all I have to do is sit down and hit record. But
hell yeah.
But like, I live in my studio and I just don't want cameras and cables and lighting all over the place. So yeah, make it work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I know you're having a busy day. I appreciate you inviting me to squeezing me in, it's fucking cool.
Oh man, I couldn't wait to talk to you, dude. Like it was so random happenstance to run into you at Hatebreed of all places. And I'm not a hardcore guy. I drove in from Iowa that day and managed to catch that show, and you were right there, and it was just like, you're a fucking podcast person, man. We got what's your Instagram? You know what I mean? And I just started checking stuff out, and I wanted to talk to you. Like so, my pleasure to squeeze you in. You know,
Yeah, like I met you briefly then. We were just rocking out beside each other, second row of a fucking hardcore show, and
I
like
love it.
got into some talk. But I had no idea you had that crazy drive to get there. And that's nuts.
It sort of worked out. Like I wasn't sure I was going to go to the show until like a couple of days beforehand. Like I drove to Iowa for another podcast things separate from what I do. And then on my way back, I was with someone and we went to check out the show. It was just very, very, very random. Like you just never know when cool people are going to pop right in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Even with that day too, I was kind of 50-50 of going. Like I don't live too far away from like the opera house, but my work schedule that week was hella intense. But I was just sitting at home, like hella relaxed, and just something in my brain's like, you know what? If you go out, like I know you don't want to go out, but if you go there, you're gonna have a great time. And yeah, I walked up to the opera house, and yeah, just like once the band started playing, like my energy just shifted immediately, as that's what metal does. It's like such
Absolutely.
like an adrenaline pumping thing that's always been around for me like my whole life. And
Same.
again, that's an example. And yeah, as you met me, I was like beside you, like screaming every fucking lyric.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you were definitely a fan, man. Like you showed him who's boss, dude. That was my first hardcore show.
Yeah. And even like it's funny because like an hour before that, I was just total opposite vibe, just like ready to take a nap. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
cool.
Music's powerful like that, man.
It is. It's the lifeblood, man. I don't know what I would be without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really stoked that you are sitting across from me, man. I want to pick your brain. I want to find out. I want to know about you and your show and what you do. I like. I'm always one of the things I'm doing right now is like my history with interviews and is like doing bands and finding out how their life balance is with that kind of stuff and like just sort of it's more about them and their band being a thing that they do as opposed to it being about the band.
Nice.
And I'm kind of leaning away from bands and getting into a bit more of a wider reach in terms of like the subculture and the people who are like scene adjacent. You know what I mean? And when it comes to podcast people, it's the most interesting thing I can think of in terms of like wanting to discuss with somebody because that's some shit that I do, and like everyone has a reason for why they set up the cameras and put themselves out to the world. And when I see someone like yourself who like just has such a great product and like has like a good vibe and stuff like that, like I can't help but like want to have some discourse. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, once again, thanks again for like having me here and like wanting to pick my brain. And it's always funny because like I have like such an embedded muscle memory of like when I'm on a Zoom call now to ask the other person questions. So I'm actually like
Dude.
like I don't know what it is. It's just like what I do. I'm usually not on the other side of the interview. So I'm like fighting like just asking you a million things about everything you do because it's just my brain is so wired to that.
I get that, man. I'm as inquisitive as you can get too. So like, if you got questions you want to ask me, that's what this platform's about. It's not me asking you and getting you stuff. Like, if you got some shit to say to me, man, like I'll answer questions.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I might like yeah, just that's a warning. I might unconsciously just turn the whole interview around
All
and
good. No worries, man. Like, the conversations go where they go. That's one of the things I like about what I do is that like sometimes I get so off track and then it doesn't become about like a point question answer sort of thing. It's just two people talking. The cameras just disappear. You know what I mean? We may as well be hanging out at a bar or something like that.
Yeah, I love that too. And even like how my show started, I was kind of telling stories of just people in my community I was like meeting through my videography life of just like different artists who had these amazing stories that weren't being told. And I initially wanted to make documentaries on people, but then I realized that just time wise, it's not that feasible. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I was consuming a lot of podcasts, and yeah, I just started that, like interviewing my community. But so yeah, early on, my show was like more like loosey, like conversational, like just felt like two friends just hanging out, because that's basically what it was. And then I throw in a couple like interesting questions. But now I feel like it has totally shifted into more of interview style, where I'm more like focused on, okay, I'm gonna have these set of points ready, because like my guests are getting bigger and bigger, and I know
Yeah.
people want to hear about them and not my about my day, or getting coffee in the morning or whatever. It's like I have these moments with like some bigger names now, so I just want to make it not only worth like their time, almost like worth the listener's time too, and like kind of dig into like some things that maybe people haven't brought up. And even though like sometimes I'll like throw a softball cliche question, it's always, I'm trying to lead to somewhere else where I'm like gonna dig into their soul, like maybe with like a follow-up or something like that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always wicked when you can kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into who you're going to be sitting across from, and like hopefully come up with some sort of dirt that you can, ask them that hasn't been seen on a lot of platforms. Because when it comes to talking to bigger guests, I found that like they're more refined in terms of their delivery, and they kind of expect that you're going to ask the same sort of questions. So it's nice when you can, discover something or like know something about their past or whatever that you can bring up, and they're sort of like, oh, well, this guy like legit cares and like actually wants to like do the work and find out. It's really, really cool. Like every chance that I get, I try and go down that rabbit hole as well. Sometimes, depending on who I'm interviewing, there's not a lot of stuff up there. And
Mhm.
and that usually comes with people like, say, newer bands or something like that. But that has its own excitement too. Like
Yeah.
I've interviewed people for their first time, and like they're just excited and their energy pops right out too. So you can kind of just make it work with however you want to go across things.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love like that you have like a platform where you're like putting on like these bands. Again, it's almost like my roots of like trying to tell all these untold stories. And I feel like as the interview itself though, there's always pros and cons too, because like some of these guys, they're not media trained. And then like
No.
you can have like a conversation with them outside the interview, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be great. And then microphone's on, and it's just like you can almost feel the nerves. It's
Yep.
but
Yep.
it's fun, and it's like they got to do it too if they're going down this path, and it's awesome to give people that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like when it comes to talking to people who put out any kind of content, whether it's video or like music or whatever, like they all like in the end, whether they're rehearsed or not, or like have been in an interview situation or not, like they still want to be able to like talk about what they do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And whether they're withstand like or not withstanding, but like just a little hesitant or like gun shy in terms of being in front of a camera, like we all sort of start somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Even like I find like one of the most flattering things on my journey too is when I was starting out, I interviewed a couple artists who were also like starting out. And then later on, as my platform started growing, and these people also got signed to labels and tours. And on a couple occasions, they knew they were going to get like media in the future on their journey, on their tour and everything. And they're like, hey Sean, can I used to do this in the studio. I was asked like could we pop in like the studio and have you interview us like for like a practice run? I feel like I really need it, and I'm comfortable around you. I'm like, oh, that's like was such like an amazing feeling, because like this
Cool.
person just got like first signed to like their first major label and was about to go on their first tour. And I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't realize like the show was that meaningful in a way. It's like it was like kind of my early days, like a handful of years ago too, when I was asked that. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And it also gave me confidence of an interview style I was like kind of iffy about too. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just started leaning into that, and it's been just positivity like that. More I leaned into that.
Awesome. I mean, and that's the whole name of the game, right? Fostering positivity. And
Hell yeah.
that's why we're in this game. Also to feed our own creative like searchings and for inspiration and all that kind of stuff too. But like you want to like push just good vibes down the camera. You know what I mean? That generates a lot of repeat interviews too. On top of that, I've had the pleasure of interviewing a couple people in succession, you know, because they just feel good about like what they're getting from you. You know what I mean? I can tell by a number of people you've spoken to that they're definitely down with who they're sitting across from. And that's a testament to like your delivery and your flow. Like good for you,
Oh,
man.
thank you. And even I notice sometimes with these bigger guests, and now that I'm kind of getting into this groove of even like, yeah, you said like the words positivity, and like I really believe it's like the energy you put out is the energy you're gonna get back. Where maybe in my early years, like sometimes I was jittery and nervous and like overthinking everything, and the interviews wouldn't go that well because I had vibes out there. But I'm starting to get like so comfy, even to the point where if I'm talking to maybe one of my heroes, like since we're doing a metal show, like a few months ago, I interviewed Alex from Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, right.
And I
Crazy.
feel like if it was like a couple of years ago, it would have been a totally different interview, because now I just kind of get so hyper focused to the point where I don't feel nervous talking to these people I really admire. And it's more like my head gets into the interview, and also like, what is the experience I'm going to give Alex today type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got my opener things, and I'm like, oh, if he answers it this way, I got these bullet points. I could take it on this journey. And like, at the same time, my, like, I feel like core intentions is to make it a good experience for him. And, or any of my guests as of late. And I've noticed like the feedback I've been getting from publicists, even though my shows haven't, like, they don't get crazy views compared to some of the other like platforms people are going on, but I've had like many times like emails coming back, and they were like, oh, they just wanted to let you know that was the most enjoyable one they had all day. Or like, even like some stuff I'm doing in the film industry, I've been bringing that kind of vibe into those interviews. And it's like somebody who voiced like the latest like Disney Pixar movie shared my interview, and I noticed I'm looking on like her timeline, and like that was the only interview she shared. It's like, just, she was like talking about like how much fun she had talking to me and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm just leaning more into whatever this vibe I'm tapping in. And I think that vibe is kind of being discovered by me not overthinking the process of the interview, and just putting a lot of my own personality into it. And it's and I guess like with anything you do in life, whether it's like interviews or like any type of art form or job or skill, the more you do it, the more it just becomes like this unconscious muscle memory, where it's almost weird to explain it out loud to you, because it's something I don't think about anymore. And even like as I'm talking, I'm like, I think I'm learning about something about myself right now.
Cool. Yeah. Discovery as you're talking. Yes.
Yeah. Like I told you, I'm always like on the other side of the interview too. So it's like, yeah, I often don't break it down what I do like this. So yeah,
Cool.
thanks for kind of just like letting me scatter my thoughts. I hope that made sense. You know,
I know exactly where you're coming from, man. I know,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Like, the best in my experience, and also this relates to what you just said, the best type of flow that you can get in front of a camera is to just be yourself. And yeah, it is muscle memory and something that you have to be practiced at and get used to, in terms of like, I'm looking at a camera with a computer screen right here, but that becomes blurred after a while. And then it becomes, like I said earlier, you're gonna be just talking to someone that's standing right in front of you. And then all these lights and all this stuff just sort of disappears. And when you are in like a natural flow state like that is what's the most memorable, not just for the person that you're speaking to, but for whoever might be watching. And that is sort of what I believe to be a part of the secret ingredient in terms of having like a quote unquote successful podcast, or should I go as far as to say an entertaining one to watch?
Yeah, I totally agree too. And like, I noticed like a lot of feedback too. A lot of people will listen to like some of these interviews, and it might be somebody I'm meeting for the first time, but because of this style I adapted, I always hear like, oh, it just sounded like I was listening to like two good friends like talk. And they're like, are you sure you didn't meet them before? I'm like, no, I literally like hit record and you get the whole thing. Like you got us meeting each other, like saying goodbye. But those are always the best ones, as you know, doing this too. It's just the flow, and it's like it'll feel like you were recording for maybe 5 minutes and you look at the clock, it's been an hour. You're
And
like,
it's been
whoa, what the
gone.
fuck? That's the best. And
Yeah.
yeah, just that flow state's amazing, man.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Like when the clock just whips right by, and you get feedback by saying like you guys like must have been lifelong friends and stuff. Like how many more examples like that do you need before you find out that you're actually like on to something? You know what I'm saying? Like you got to be in the right avenue when you're getting compliments that huge.
Yeah, for sure. And I think sometimes like I suffer from being such an overthinker where I feel like it almost takes too much of those compliments like hitting me in the head to finally like embed it into me. Like I don't know if it's just like an unawareness or an overly humble thing I got going on where it's
Right.
just like, because again, I am always thinking of how to push this forward, and even assessing myself, oh, what can I do better? And that's always like, I guess, in the forefront of my brain. And
Sure.
I feel like one thing I need to do more often is take a step back and breathe and celebrate it. And I feel like I haven't done that since like the holiday. I took a little break, and I'm like, oh, let's do something different and kind of like celebrate old episodes. I made like a graphic. I called it the Creative Imbalance Awards, and it was
Oh
like,
yeah.
I posted like the episode. I got the most YouTube videos or YouTube views, the most audio clicks, and like personal favorite. And after I made this post, and I just kind of like looked at it, I'm just like, you know what, man? Like it finally made me get out of my head and like see it from like a bird's eye view. And it was just like, man, you grew a lot this year as just with the platform and interviews. And finally it made me like feel a little pride in what I built, instead of this torturous internal like overthinking brain that I naturally have. So I
Yeah.
gotta make a point to do that more often. Like,
You should. It's highly recommended. There's a great quote out there called, if you can't step back when you're able, then you can't step forward when you need to.
mm,
And one of the most important things, especially when it comes to projects in your life that you're passionate about, there's too much of a good thing. And you need to be able to take a breath and recalibrate or ground yourself or whatever it is you need to do, because it can become laborious. I've had this project become a chore for sure in
mhm.
the past. I don't I don't have enough time to pump out the quantity of content that I want to, but it's not about the numbers. It's about looking forward to the guests. It's about looking forward to the setup, the ritual of setting up the space, doing the research, sit down, record time, tear down, edit, and then that becomes its own self-fulfilling reward in itself. You know what I mean? Sometimes you
Mhm.
can change your goal in terms of where you want the podcast to do. Where it's like for me right now, it's less about where I can take things, but more about like being present and being about the interview and the process it takes to sitting in the chair and what happens afterwards. And so I'm keeping things in my mind a little bit more short term. Like the goals are shorter, no, not smaller, but they're shorter. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, yeah. It's more just like I don't give a fuck about all this other stuff. I'm gonna focus on the craft and make like the best product I can do. And I notice like if you kind of stay in that lane, like it will naturally grow like unconsciously
Yep.
in ways you don't even imagine.
Yep.
Because like at first, like maybe you could be like putting content out, and like even sometimes I feel like this way that like nobody's like really like watching certain things or like special interviews. But if you stay consistent and stay on your path, and like especially if it's something unique and genuine, there's a point where it becomes undeniable and people can't ignore it, like maybe like
Yeah.
they'll scroll by the first couple and then it just keeps popping up and they're, what is this, and finally like give it a look, and if it's quality, it's like you got a lifer there. They're just like, oh my god, like it's amazing.
Yeah, it's you get what you put in, and the rewards are are what you want them to be. I don't know, like I don't know what I want out of this thing. Like I don't know what I'm pursuing other than like it helps me grow spiritually. I don't, and that's all I kind of need at this point.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
I could, like, you know, toil around for years unnoticed, and like I kind of really don't care. I want to do as much as I can to push the other person's product and agenda and their thing as much as I can, but it's not about viewer count. It's not about like subscribers and stuff. Like, it just, you can get lost in the numbers, man. Like, it just it depends on what the goal is, dude.
Yeah, and it's so cool to talk to you, somebody who does this, like, and I feel like very connected in the same way as you, where you use the word spiritually. And I said this to somebody like a month ago, where I'm like, they were talking, because like the past year, like I talked about how I had some bigger guests or whatever, but again, that wasn't always like the plan. I didn't know that was going to happen or whatever. It was just like, I was very like into the process. It's like almost meditative. And I said to this person like a couple months ago, I was like, I think I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life, and unless I lose my voice or just die. Like, it's just, this is the thing I found, and it feels so good when just to have these conversations. And a lot of times, like my segments, I'm focusing on the other person and asking them questions, but there's a layer of like just inspiration, like selfishly I'm getting from having these conversations, of just like feeling good being in these conversations, you know. And because it's like, even like I noticed, like when you go out with your friends these days too, everybody's kind of like connected to their phones and like you could be out, like you'd be at a show or whatever, but the presence isn't as intense as when you're doing a podcast with somebody, because your total focus just becomes a conversation. And I notice even sometimes it'll lead to places and deeper questions that you wouldn't expect. Like in my artist friends who maybe I've known for like a decade, every time they come on my show, we both say after it, like many times, that, oh, I feel like I know you better, you know, because the conversation was just so hyper focused on just the craft and like just your mind, your heart, whatever we're digging into and talking about.
That's such a cool way of looking at that. Yeah, man, food for thought. Thank you for that little tidbit.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm sure you're doing all that too, but just unconsciously, you know. It's like
yeah, I never think about that when it's when the red light's on. It just sort of just works out the way that it does. That's all I need. It sounds like that's all you need too. And just the excitement of where, you know, what's next, where it could go. Like, fuck, man. Like, I think you're definitely onto something. I know I'm definitely onto something. It feels good. We both could be doing this stuff for the rest of our life, and whatever shape it might take. You know what I mean? Yeah,
definitely. One thing I didn't notice from meeting you at the Hatebreed show, because it was just so loud and everything, how natural and awesome your voice is for like radio.
Oh,
Like,
thanks.
I'm just hearing you through headphones right now. I'm just like, yo, it seems like meant to be, like just that voice.
Thank you. I can't help it. I was born with a robust voice. And I got the right microphone for this too. Like I definitely did go through some research to find out how to best shape the radio audio voiceage. But yeah, thank you very much, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I gotta
pick your brain on some microphone stuff too. I just kind of got like a little easy setup right now, but yeah, I'll do that off the air. I won't bore people with all the techie shit.
Oh man, yeah, I gotta leave room on this thing for like some techie stuff. Sometimes I'll go into studio stuff depending on the musician. I'll interview a guy who like, you know, mixes their albums, and then I'll get into that. You know what I mean? It makes them tick. This is another way of eliciting, you know, their excitement, I suppose.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more like, my brain works as like an idea type of person, and then I'll think of like the bigger picture of the idea, and then I figure everything out, like technicalities, as I'm going on, like trying to create it. And it's kind of like been a blessing too. I've learned like so many different Adobe programs from that too. It's like, oh, I need this. I don't have a budget to hire somebody, but okay, let's figure it out. And just going down a rabbit hole of like YouTube tutorials and stuff. And it's usually like some 12-year-old kid like telling me how to like
gives you the fix,
do my green screen or whatever, which is a true story. So yeah.
No, it's
like,
totally,
thanks, little buddy. Like,
it's totally true. I had to do that before I sat down with you today. Like I'm having camera issues right now. I've noticed my screen's doing a little blippy thing. I use OBS to record intros and outros for these videos and stuff, but they released something that just dropped the frame rate, so I'm on something called Streamlabs.
Oh yeah.
Right, but now that I'm not streaming through that, I'm running through some Black Magic, like a ATEM card. I'll spare. We're getting into technical stuff, but like for some reason my camera's a little bit glitchy. But as long as I'm coming through clear, you
Oh
can hear me,
yeah,
I guess everything's good. Yeah, yeah.
And usually these type of segments too, people press play and they're more like listening to the audio. Like I know like you're gonna watch the video and see the blip and you're gonna be like, fuck, but it's gonna be little things that people don't notice. And that's another thing like with my work too that I'm trying to be more conscious of like sometimes like little things will bug me and I'll just realize like nobody gives a fuck about that, you
Nobody
know?
fucking cares but you. Nobody cares. And I'm like that. I know it's glitchy, and I'll find out what it is. But like, it's gonna get uploaded, and that'll be the end of it. Like, let it go. I definitely, you touched on your work for a second, which I'd love to get into. You're a theater person, aren't you?
Well, recently I started working at a theater. Um, So yeah, long story short, like for the past decade, I've been a videographer, and that's almost been like a journey, like podcasting. I picked up a camera, just loved it, didn't go to school for it, started just filming my artist friends around me, and after a couple years of that and unconsciously getting better and better, it's turned into a job. And yeah, it's just been on like so many different productions. And recently in the past couple years, I started working at the auditorium in the Agacom Museum. And yeah, I originally got hired as a cameraman, and just being around the space, I can't even tell you what my job title is anymore. They're just like, so I kind of accidentally turned into a theater person, which is the story of all my gigs. It's just accident where yeah, like some days I'm like a stage manager there too. So I'm like giving people cues, like letting them out on like the stage or just even unlocking the door some days. But yeah, I feel like my history in theater isn't like very deep rooted into recently. Like I've been
Okay.
to a couple plays, usually like the crazy ones. I went to like Book of Mormon and Evil Dead the musical and stuff.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, I tend to just only see musicals that are like completely fucked up. Like I don't think I've been to like a normal one. Maybe when I was like really little, like on
Yeah,
a
sure.
school trip.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a theater person. It just kind of
Okay.
happened, you know.
Yeah, cool, man. Like falling into theater is like, it's a blessing. Theater's like the coolest shit anyone could ever be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I just totally have like a appreciation for any type of performing arts, as like whether it's music or film or even watching a play too. Like I feel like I think it's the reason why I kind of do this show, because like I feel like my passion for that kind of stuff is like next level, where it's after I see a crazy performance, I want to like talk to the person, you know, and just like dig into the backstory. Like, how did you get here? Like, what led you to this? Like, how did it feel to do this? And like all like the intricacies of like them like learning their craft and everything. It's just
Yeah,
like
dude.
such a natural curiosity. And yeah, even to connect it again to the show I do, people always ask me like oh, like how do you prepare for your questions and stuff? And it's just like, I don't know. They're just, it feels like I get hit with like a jolt of lightning and they're all there. Like
Yeah.
I'll like just read some information on maybe my guess. It's not like I don't prepare, but just the questions just flood to the point where I can't even fit them all in like an interview, or I'll cut a bunch where to make it flow like in a certain style and everything.
Right
But
on.
yeah.
You're gonna find like a lot if you start to go down to talking to like actors and actresses and that kind of stuff. You're gonna get all kinds of crazy stories. Some of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life are stage performers.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like musical performers. They got stories, man. They have stories. If that's an avenue you could pursue, I highly recommend it. I'd
Yeah.
love to do it.
I haven't released this episode. I recorded it before the holiday, and yeah, it was this movie called Open, but it was it was such like an art house piece, but I talked to the one lady who wrote it, she acted in it, and basically it was a movie about like this couple getting into like an open relationship, but when they'd have like certain problems and quarrels, it would cut to almost a dream sequence of what's going on in the girl's head, and it turned into like full-blown like musical of all these raunchy things happening too. So yeah, it was very interesting. And yeah, that's like probably like one of the only times I took a deep dive like talking about her theater background as well too, because it connected to this film, which was like very cool and bizarre and stuff like that. And you just remind me I need to edit that
Oh
because
man,
it's on the back burner.
I'll be watching that as soon as it comes out.
Yeah. So do you have a background in theater as well?
Yes, I do. I most of my career has been spent in theater. I'm a by certification. I'm what you call an entertainment rigger.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so I've worked in theater for 10 years. I ran the staging department in a theater called Neptune Theater in Halifax, Nova Scotia, for the better part of 10 years. And that's like involves the fly rail system where like things are flying in and out. Actresses could be hooked up to shit and they're attached to ropes and pulleys, for lack of a better explanation. And I'm the
So they're
person
trusting you with their life, basically.
every day, sometimes twice.
Yeah.
And that was one of the highlights of my life, was working in theater doing that. But I've also worked in like I've done the rock and roll thing, rigging for that before theater, and now I'm working in film as a rigging grip. So the stuff that I'm doing these days, you don't see on TV or a movie screen or whatever. In fact, if you do, then I'm doing my job wrong. But it's usually has to do with like counterweighting, the shaping of light, supporting lighting department, that kind of stuff. I've been involved in the entertainment industry for almost my entire adult life in some shape or form relating to rigging.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I find too, I've worked those type of gigs where even on like I used to work for like companies like in Toronto, like NASCO and Westbury, like all these like different like staging places. And yeah, I would go to concerts and like just as like a gig and like meet all like the different riggers and stuff like that. And it's a pretty intense job. And but I also notice like within these jobs, because they're so close to the entertainment industry, you meet a lot of people who are in bands, like stand-up comedians, actors too, because like
Sure.
I think lots of people get these jobs, they'd be on set like doing their passion, and they're just like, okay, I need to make money, and then go talk to like a production guy, and it's like, okay, come tomorrow, bring your steel toe boots type of thing, and
Yep.
actually you're gonna appreciate this as a metal guy. One summer I was working for this company NASCO, and we were doing this big EDM festival in Downsview Park in Toronto, called Veld, and I forget which year it was. It might have been like 2018 or something.
Okay.
But anyways, I'm on my coffee break, just sitting at a picnic table, and this guy sits across from me, long fucking hair, has a shirt that says Vakken Metal Fest, and I'm like, cool, man. And automatically my brain was like, yeah, I'm gonna be this guy's best friend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm like, yo, that's cool. Like, and I noticed it was like a tour shirt. I'm like, oh, did you go to Germany, go see the festival? And he's like, yeah. And he's just very humble. He's like, yeah, my band actually like played on that. I'm like, no way. I'm like, that's really cool. And I'm like, what's your band's name? And he's like, yeah, for about like 6 years I drummed for like this Canadian metal band. Like I'm not gonna know. He's like, this Canadian metal band called Annihilator. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, bro, I'm like picking his brain, and like I realized like he did all the drumming on my favorite Annihilator CD and stuff like that, which
Awesome.
I owned at home. I'm like, bro, this is like
No
like
shit.
like I was like, you could tell I was getting excited, but I didn't want to like scare him, like extra
Yeah,
fanboy.
I
But
know
I'm
what you
just
mean.
but like in the back of my head, I'm just like, oh my god, I can't wait to tell all my friends, like my buddies who used to crank that and drink beers with me and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
guess who I had coffee with? And then like, yeah, he came like the homie for like over that whole like week we were doing that too. Like, just gravitated to him, and it's like, holy shit. And like I'd be talking to other people like on site, and I'd be like, yo, like I didn't know, but I listened to this guy's music. Like I bought his music. Like it's so cool.
That's
Like
an awesome story, man. I love
yeah.
shit like that.
Yeah, but yeah, like just rigging everything, all that type of like concert industry stuff. It's like it's so connected to metal too. And even
Huge.
I heard an amazing story about John Davis from Korn when he was like trying to get really sober. And instead of like going back to the tour bus, he knew he was going to be like tempted to just get fucked up and do drugs
Yep.
or whatever.
Yep.
So he asked one of the riggers if he could help. So for a while, like on one tour, like they'd be tearing down and like you just see like there's like stories from other people who were like also part of like the tear down of the production. They just see Jonathan Davis like up on like a ladder. They're like, man, what are you doing? Just like, oh, just keeping my hands busy, you know, like loading
Awesome.
trucks. And like I'm like, that's so cool that he like
That's
was
wicked.
hands on like
I
that.
never,
And yeah,
I never would have guessed he would have done something like that.
yeah, but it's so close to like the performance, you know, it's just right there, like the neighbor of everything and the reason why these things happen too. And it's yeah, it's cool. You must meet like a lot of artists too who like around these shows who like really respect what you do. And like if you ever get like a chance like on the show, like to talk to some of these people, be like, yo, like I wouldn't happen unless it was for you guys, you know, type of thing
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah. I would love to. I would like to frequent more theater to be able to attract the actors and actresses from that world. In my film world, I'm not in front of the camera or the cast. I'm part of the crew that sets up for these people. And when they come in to shoot, I'm on another location setting up. And when they're done shooting, we go back to tear things out, that kind of stuff. It's like the support sort of structure around that. So I would get more of like, we'll say like people who like act on the side, but also have a trade in something related to the setup of the film industry. And there'd be like that angle that I could work. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely,
But there
definitely.
is a huge like backbone to the visual product that is like, you know, what you see on TV or what you see on stage. Like if you take your eye off the musician that's standing in front of you on stage and look up and see all the PA and the lighting truss, like there's a whole army of people that make that happen. And if it wasn't for riggers and lighting technicians and stuff like that, we would not be seeing anything really. Like
Yeah,
huge.
those gigs like totally changed my perspective of how I like look at a show.
Yeah.
And I've even met people on those gigs who are so much like in the tech mind of building a show where I don't even think they enjoy the art, you know, like when they're like not at work, they're not going to shows, man. Like that reminds them of like that's how deep they're in it. And like even though like I noticed that industry is like really good money, like I didn't get that deep into it where you
Yeah.
just become like
Yep.
so obsessed because like again, like all these like live performance and stuff, it's like part of my soul, it's my escape. It's just like I can't even think of a word. It's like a feeling I get from it that I need to keep special and sacred and not take it too much as a job and everything.
Unfortunately, it is a byproduct.
Mhm.
Working in film, like, I mean, I'm not much of a movie person. I don't like watch a lot of TV or anything. I work in film, honestly, because it pays well. Um, for theater, however, the way that things come together and what you put out for an audience, like a theater type audience, it interests me more. That's more my kind of culture. And I've done the 10-year thing, but I can go watch theater all day, every day. Whereas, and like not have it ruined for me. The same thing with like concerts and stuff like that. Like I don't like I'll think about what's going on backstage, but it's not taking me out of the experience. Whereas,
Mhm.
whereas film, like, you know, it's you know, there's wrenches and harnesses and in a lift all day kind of thing. So it's sort of, I don't take it home and it doesn't ruin a TV show that I might watch, but the excitement isn't really there. But
Yeah.
I do know people who just have had their craft usurp their passion for like the live shows that they once went to go see. It's all, when it comes to stuff like that, man, it's all perception. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It just depends on, it's mental hurdles. Like you can have your cake and eat it too. Like you can work that scene and go enjoy the stuff that, like the finished product, if you just know how to handle it mentally. There's a way to do it. There's a way to do anything.
Yeah, that's fact too. And almost going full circle, like sometimes like when you get in that groove, like what we were talking about, sometimes just taking a step back and stop doing it for a bit will make you like reappreciate everything. And
Oh, dude. And like, again, like it's so important to be able to step back from certain things in your life, like work, the podcast stuff, like batteries have to be recharged. You know,
yeah.
you got to be able to step back. Do you are you a Toronto native?
Um, I'm not originally from here, but I've been here about 10 years now.
Okay, where are you from?
I'm from Niagara, so not too far,
Oh.
like a stone's throw away.
So, on the topic of recharging and stuff like that, do you find yourself being able to get back there to hear the roaring waterfall go down? Does that do anything for you in terms of a reset? You know what I mean?
I find more just, I guess, more of a reset is, this sounds so weird, but just kind of disconnecting from emails and people and almost like getting into my own thoughts. It's like of just having a moment of peace, because I feel like I'm always like, especially like with the podcast, it's like ongoing stuff with like PR. And in my video life too, there's like a whole other thing. I'm connected to like all these different art communities too, and I always feel like just all day there's little like messages and DMs of people like asking questions, and it feels like often that all my limbs are getting pulled in different directions.
Sure.
So my resets maybe not going back home or whatever, because I also feel like, again, when I'm there, family is doing that. They're like, oh, I want to see you, pulling me again, and
Yeah,
like
it's just more
limbs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's almost like I feel like if I take a day and just go, I'm gonna fucking ghost the world, that's the most recharging thing I can ever do. And but it's hard for me because sometimes I get so in the groove of nonstop work and endless things to edit. And yeah, outside the podcast thing, one of the things I'm known for is filming for this battle rap league, or a couple actually.
Yep.
And
I was going to talk about that.
yeah, hell yeah. But again, it's almost okay, almost like what we were talking about before too, like talking about these people who get in the industry as a job. Me starting to film this battle rap was completely out of fandom, but then like as the years went by, I'm starting to get more responsibility and stuff, and I have moments where it's just like I'm in such a cycle of like just DMs from the community, things to edit, shows coming up, where internally it starts feeling like a job. And I've had moments where it's like this completely awesome fucking fun thing that I decided to do starts to feel like this burden. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah,
but
man.
every time I acknowledge I'm getting into that mindset, I do something to change it, and I'll take a breath, and then I'll start reappreciating it. Or like even not do as many shows at once, and like take a couple months off and go to a show. And then I walk in the room, it's like, you know what? I fucking love this shit. I just
Yeah, dude.
needed
Yes.
the breath and not be on the hamster wheel of putting out content and taking care of people,
Dude.
when you got to take care of yourself sometimes too.
Yeah, man. And this thing can suck. This thing can weigh, it can weigh heavy. You know what I mean? You've got it figured out. You know how to take breaks. You know how to find your longevity in these projects. And that's space, that's boundaries. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I need to remind myself, because sometimes I feel like I'll be hitting like the edge of like I don't know what it is, where it feels like I'm internally like about to have like a snapping moment or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But then luckily like my internal like narrative will be like, yo, this isn't right. Like step back, take a breath, like, because
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I get in a mode where I put myself in different positions where I'm taking care of so many people, when really there's like more times I need to start taking care of myself better,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
like on a day where I'm supposed to have a breather, just like have a day off, I'm doing this other passion project and people are expecting
Yo.
this video to drop at a certain time and blah blah. Like but it's I can't like be like, oh boo-hoo my situation or whatever. I put myself in these situations, you know.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, it's just like it's always been a thing with me where I'm just trying to balance the scales in a way. But yeah, and some days are better than others type of thing, to be real with you with on that.
Oh, well, we're human. Like,
Hell yeah.
the way you see one thing one day doesn't always line up the next day, whether you like the thing or not. Like, it's just the way things are. Like, it's important not to question that stuff. In my experience, it's just let thing. It's, if you're gonna feel like shit about something that has something to do with your podcast, for example, well, it's that you're allowed to feel that, but also you're allowed to do something about it too, whether it's walk away or dive in or whatever. Like, we're all human beings. Sounds like we're both like empathic in a sense too. Like, yeah, like, yeah, it's a curse and a blessing, isn't it?
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's
Fuck.
the best way to put it. You know what? Like, I didn't even realize really what that word really meant till like a couple years ago, and like why I'm so acceptable to different energies, good and bad. And like you just said, blessing and a curse can be the greatest thing. You saw me at the Hatebreed show, like, and like I mentioned, I was like dead tired. I walked in that building, and all of a sudden, it's like I'm just beaming with fucking energy, you know? But then like sometimes I can walk in a room and it just be like the vibes are off or whatever, and that starts weighing me. But one thing I'm trying to get better at is dictating my own vibes and not like, I don't know, always I don't know, just being such a sponge to everything.
Mhm.
And it's hard. It's like almost like this meditative practice I've been doing with. I haven't even told anybody this, but this is just something I've been doing internally to help me. But like,
hit me with it, man.
when I get like conscious of like a room or something like really sucking my energy or a situation, thinking about like, can I shift the vibe myself? Could I be the vibe, you know? And like
Sure.
maybe I'll say something, make a joke, or like pull somebody aside who's like not in like some drama that's happened. It's like, hey, let's have a good night, you know, like stuff, something like that, you know. And
Yep.
it's not all the time, but I'm working on it, and it's little by little I feel like I'm being less drained by other people's energies. And I also think that's coming with like my own personal maturity as I'm getting older too, and understanding what being an empath is too. Like,
Yeah, man.
like that used to be like such like a foreign term to me like years ago, and now I'm just like looking into it, I'm like, that's totally what I am. Like, to
For
a
sure.
T. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, and just living your truth, you know what I mean? I same sort of boat, definitely sensitive to vibes and energies and stuff like that. I like I feel like we're similar in a sense that, like, we have the power in ourselves to like change the energy in the room. I wouldn't so go as far as to say to suit our comfortability, but like, we can be at the forefront of the energy in the direction that it's kind of going. But a thing that I'm working on, and this is relevant because I'm cultured. I'm from East Coast, Nova Scotia, Canada, and
Cool.
the people out there are very different than the people who grew up here. And people, and Toronto people aren't cold, but they're just different, and I'm not used to it. And sometimes I find that like sometimes the best answer for me, and I've done this in the past, is like, if I'm not feeling the energy and there's no hard ties to me being in this room, I'll excuse myself.
Hell yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
the
Like,
best.
like, again, to bring it back to what you were saying before, nobody gives a fuck. So like that might sound a little bit cold in myself saying that, but like, fucking, if you're not feeling some shit, like, walking away isn't a bad thing, whether it's out of a room of shitty people or out of a project that isn't floating for you or whatever. Like, you can be like, towel in. It's not a slight on character. Like, you're looking after yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you probably can like sense certain things too as well. I get that vibe off you, like maybe like you got like a certain intuition about, I don't know whether it's like people or like rooms and stuff like that.
I've been around a lot of people who act, and they put a face on whether it's for usually for pay, but like they can change themselves to suit what they're doing. And I mean that that came from a professional standpoint, not a sociopathic standpoint, or like, you know, like someone who's like just sort of sick. But coming out here, people are just a harder read. Like I'm 3 years here, almost 3 years here. And there's just a huge pile of personalities in such a small area. And I'm still trying to get my radar in terms of my radar down in terms of like who actually is who they might be. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but there's still some fine tuning that needs to be put down in terms of like, I guess relations and the people that I'm introducing to me in my life while I'm here doing it is what I do. This happens to be the best vessel for it so far because, like yourself, I've interviewed people that are from Toronto, and I still talk to them to this day. Like they become friends and stuff like that, and that's from similar interests and that kind of thing too. You know, like it's another reason why this podcasting thing is great.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Too. It's like I feel like sometimes this medium, in a way, you connect to people on a deeper level, whether you're conscious about it or not. Like just like you could have somebody on, just you can kind of expect or like think about how the interview is going to go in your head or the segment, but you really don't know until you're doing it too. And even like some of the people I consider close friends who I met through doing interviews too, like on paper we seem like different people, like aliens to each other.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you just get this social chemistry with people that's I can't even put into words. It's just a vibe, you know?
Agreed.
And there's some people like I've done interviews with, and now like they're definitely going to be lifelong friends. Like, you know, like we're always like keeping in touch. And but again, it's like you look on paper, it's like, oh yeah, these two people aren't alike, but like socially, you can find like some common ground of just something within the personality or so. I don't know. It's just something I'm always like over analyzing and I can't even like put into words, but it's something I find so beautiful about this medium.
Dude, couldn't have said it better, man. Couldn't have said it better. You and me should meet up for a beer one of these days.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we said that even before doing the segment too. Like even like I got such a great vibe from you from the show too, and just like shooting the shit for a little bit and having that cool experience of just some live music too. Like you could tell, like again, man, it's like just being in that room, like you're with your people too, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm looking at one right now, man.
Hell yeah, man.
I'm about to start like a 20-day straight work stint, but when I come out on the other side, I'll give you a ding. We'll meet up for a beer. First round's on me.
Oh fuck! I was gonna say no. It's on me, man. 20-day work stint, dude. I got the first couple rounds, brother. You're gonna deserve that, man.
It's the life I chose, homie.
Yeah, I love it, man. But yeah, thank you so much, man. This is such a cool, like, even like calming talk. You know, it's interesting too, like being on the other side of the interview, like to go full circle from what I was talking about. I've like tried not to hijack your segment and everything, but it's like kind of just saying things out loud that I kind of think about in my head of the process of podcasting or just life in general. I found like this hour or almost an hour we've been talking has been very therapeutic in a way. Like I feel like almost like there was weights on the shoulders that I didn't know about, and they're kind of like gone, you know. It's just kind of letting some stuff out, you know. It's cool.
Great, man. Great. I'm really happy that that I could provide a space for you where you could do such a thing. Fun fact, I a couple of interviews prior, I got the idea of steering my platform towards mental health and that kind of thing. And my conversations always typically kind of go down this path because it's less about you and your podcast. It's more about you and the thing that you do, which is the podcast, and how you were able to navigate your life with this thing, with you know, your passion projects and stuff. And that equals mental health to me. And mental health is the most important thing in the world, bar none. Nothing comes close to it. And I'm looking about taking things down that direction. And I didn't even have a plan for that. I wasn't even planning to do that when talking to you. That's just where it went. You know what I
That's
mean?
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
that is just some vibe shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I could see that being like a meant to be thing for you too, because you just kind of got like a personality that's kind of like soothing and easy to open to, you know,
Oh
like
man, thank
even
you very
like
much.
it's yeah, I'd say explore that avenue too, whether it's
I'm
still on the same platform or you do something else too. And you know how these things go. It's like sometimes like you do the first one and then it'll lead in like this direction and then you keep going and then it just takes you off in a direction you didn't even expect and everything, and that's the beauty of like doing podcasting and everything, man.
absolutely, man. We discover ourselves as we go with these things.
Yeah, actually last night I had a beer with a couple people and they were talking, these two guys, they were like, yeah, we kind of want a podcast, we gel together and we recorded something, we didn't edit it, and they were just very like had a layer of self-conscious about it, and I'm just like, man, do it. I'm like, it changed my life and blah blah blah. And then I
Yeah.
discovered they were metalheads too, and I'm like, yo, like literally like years ago I was just talking to my friends. The other month I had fucking Alex Cannibal Corpse, the Buzz from Unearth. They're like, what the fuck? I'm like, man, just do it and
Just
just
do it.
go with the flow. And I'm like, just taking, I find like taking that first step is always the hardest thing too, because
Oh yeah,
it's
man.
so foreign and it's like it's
It
scary
it's
and you're,
scary as shit. My first interview went an hour and a half, and it was just no, I was filling space. You know what I mean?
yeah, and it's just like, but once you take that first step, it's just like so many lessons, and especially if you like kind of have an understanding where the first one's not going to be perfect, even though in your brain you're overthinking, you want it to be the best interview that's anybody's ever heard, even though you've never done this shit before. It's like you do it and you're like, oh yeah, next time I can do this better, next time I can do this better.
Yeah, man.
And then all of a sudden you get the snowball rolling and it's just, it turns into an avalanche, and then it's crazy.
It's
That's my story at least. So I always try to tell aspiring people, and even beyond podcasting, if they have like some artistic thing, they're like, yeah, I really enjoy this, but I don't know, I was thinking about trying it. I'm always like aggressive, like do it,
yeah.
like
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, man. We only got one trip around this rock, man. Go get it. Like,
Mhm.
go get it. It's like, can't win if you don't play. The regrets and what ifs are gonna age you quick. Go fucking after what you want. Just go fucking do it. You never know what's gonna come out of it, man. And that's one of the answers of life, in my opinion, man.
Yeah. To quote a good friend of mine who's not with us anymore, he passed away as a battle rapper, actually from Scotia. His name's Pat Stay.
Oh
Um,
yeah, really. I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah, no, it's all good. It was a couple years ago he passed, and there's something I reposted of him, but I don't want to butcher his quote, but he was talking about like inspiration, talking about how what like almost like getting out of your own head and like following your passions, and like what you hear from like somebody you're talking to, like who's like an old man or whatever, they always tell you to follow your dreams. And the quote was like, don't die at 25 and get buried at 70.
Oh my God, that's deep. Holy shit.
Yeah, and he says it in the midst of like just a public speaking, like just like he says it better than I explained it right now. And it just like, give somebody shared that and I got goosebumps and I fucking like reshared it in my story. I'm just like, oh my God, I miss this guy. But like fucking like it's so true, because
So true.
so many young people can like overthink their passions, and you try to do sometimes what's best for what everybody else thinks is best for you,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's not always best for you. And that's something I've learned the older I get too, because I used to always be a people pleaser, and even I feel like I've got late in the game with this podcast thing, you know. It's
Ah,
again, I was scared to take that first step.
yeah.
It was, but also like I feel like the perception or perspective helped me, like of getting older and realizing I need to do what I need to do. It's like I wouldn't trade the journey for nothing,
Absolutely.
but it's like I feel like people should feel less pressure. I know there's like you got bills to pay and all that, but at least around it, chip away at like what you want to do.
Yeah,
And
man. Yeah, man.
it's magic can happen. again, to tell you, it's like, that's why when somebody's like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this again, I get so aggressive. I'm like, do it. Like, and it's like aggressive with love. It's like,
Yeah, man.
because it's like changed me, man. Like, it's like I've been seeing magic happen out of nothing, out of things I was scared to take a step towards.
For
So
sure.
I'm always just trying to push that message across. And I see people who were successes, like my pal Pat, who was like, not only was he Canadian, he was considered one of the best battle rappers in the world. Before he passed, he got signed to like the network with Trailer Park Boys. He's gonna have his own show on there
Oh yeah,
called
no way.
Unreasonable Rob. It was like a character he made, and like, just, he had a moment that was just like, fuck it, I'm just, and he's always been driven of like his passions, and magic happens when you get into that groove.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. And you'll never know what can happen until you go into it. I encourage. People are gun shy about jumping in front of the camera, chasing podcast stuff, or anything that they feel like they want to tap into. Like, tap into it. You can become 10 feet tall because of it.
Yeah,
dude. You were wise beyond your years, homie.
I don't know. I feel like I'm just taking I don't feel like I'm smart myself, but I know a lot of smart people, and I'm taking in like all their experiences and stuff like that. You know, it's just like kind of just learning from other people's histories and experiences. And again, like, I'm an empath as well. So if somebody's like being an example like that too, in an empath in the best way, just like, I'll soak that in, and I'll fucking fuel off that for weeks, you know, and just put it in my own work, even though I'm doing something completely different than this person.
Yeah, totally. Man. I don't really think I have much more to ask of you, man. Like, this has been a quick ass, like the minute hand just went woof.
Yeah, I know. I looked at the clock, it's 5:00. We started at 4.
Yeah.
I keep saying to go full circle, but like, again, like we were talking about how like sometimes you get in a good groove and it feels like 5 minutes, and then an hour goes by. So this was just like such a great talk, man. I thank you so much for giving me the space to just shoot the shit with you, and like kind of get things off my mind that I usually just tinker around to myself. You know, these usually stay as thoughts, but it's kind of like freeing to just throw it out in the open, you know? Yeah, hell yeah, man.
It's therapy, man. Therapeutic. Fucking, I'm glad you took advantage of it. I'm glad you felt comfortable sitting across from me to do it. And like my YouTube therapy couch is open anytime you want to use it, man.
Hell yeah, man. I love it, dude. Yeah. And like you said, like when you get back from your work stint, we're gonna definitely go for some beers, dude.
Yep, you know it. I'll be reaching out, man. Sean, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate this, man.
Yeah. All right. Take care, dude. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Likewise. Bye. That was an awesome interview, man. Sean, empath. Word of the day is empath. That dude is cut from the same cloth I am. I had no idea that it would be such a seamless, cool-ass connection. The cameras and the lights literally disappeared. Like, sometimes they have that effect on this show, but not like this. And this dude is just right up the road. I'm looking forward to having a beer with you soon, son. And you know what? To be fair, he did strike on something I've been thinking about doing for a while with the direction of the show, was to lean things towards a bit of more of a mental health / therapeutic approach for bands and podcasters and all the people who are in, you know, that are adjacent, that are seen adjacent in this world of the subculture, I guess subculture in general. Mental health is a real thing. I will always give space, whether it's on this platform or off camera, to discuss mental health and talk with people. It's one of the things that makes me tick. I think it's a great idea for some genuine content, and you know, I don't think I really would have followed through with that or put some serious thought into it until Sean brought it up. So yeah, man, thank you so much. So if you want to see what Sean's up to, check the links in the description. He's on YouTube, he's on Spotify, where you can find all the platforms of podcast watchage. You'll find him there. Creative Imbalance, very, very cool stuff. Highly recommended. And while you're at it, give Evisceradio some love, please. I'm across all social media platforms as well. Instagram, Facebook. I'm on YouTube, Spotify. Same as a Creative Imbalance with Sean's thing. You can find me anywhere where you find your podcast needs. Check my shit out. I hope you guys like it. I enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. And look forward to more. I got more content. 2024 has just begun, and I got some cool things in the works. A couple of really cool announcements.
There's a new podcast that's in the mix right now with some people from the Men of Misfortune fame over in Dubuque, Iowa. Watch out for YouTube, Spotify, blah, 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 blah. Lots of content with my ugly ass mug on there. And I hope you guys just enjoy what's coming out. My name is Thomas. This is Evisceradio, and I'll catch you on the next one. Ciao.